Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Big Bros podcast. Just a warning for our lovely listeners. Today we will be dealing with a very challenging topic that includes death and grief. And for those that do choose to listen and stay on, we hope that you guys are able to derive some value from this episode, and we do hope that you enjoy. Jeremy, how are you, my friend?
Mate, I'm okay. I mean, I'm sitting here today with you on a Friday. This time last week was a very tough time for me personally, for my family. Yeah, it all feels very raw so far. But you know what? I think we wanted to jump on today and be raw and be vulnerable. Everything's really fresh as well. But yeah, I'm sure everyone's wondering what I'm talking about, and that was, yeah, we lost our family dog, Archie, and you know. For anyone that has gone through the process of losing a family dog, it's probably one of the most gut-wrenching things you will experience. Like, any form of death or loss is absolutely depressing and gut-wrenching. But why I think losing an animal, a pet, a dog that you've loved so much is different to losing a human in the family is because the animal doesn't really understand what they're going through. They don't really understand the extent of their potential illness at the time or their potential derailment. And everything with Archie just happened really, really quickly as well. I mean, he was only 2 weeks shy of his 10th birthday, so effectively quite young still. So much life to still be lived. It was only last week where, we were running around in the park with him. Not even last week, a matter of days before, he started to derail in the park, in the leaves, in the bushes, acting himself, chewing on his bones, causing a ruckus for other dogs. And Wednesday night, I think it was late Wednesday night, he was just acting weird around the house, walking a bit funny, buckling his legs. And then we took him to emergency. And then the next day, we were awaiting some scans. But, they thought that something was up. So he needed to go in for like an emergency surgery on the Friday morning. And we basically got told to prepare for the worst because he might not wake up from it. So taking him in that morning was the worst thing in the world. It was because the dog's sitting there in the car and he's happy as Larry still. He's licking us. He's laughing. But, imagine a dog laughing. Just a happy fella, like a golden retriever. Just loves life, loves company. And we take him in and there we are bawling our eyes out, giving him last cuddles, last kisses, potentially last ones. And yeah, he went in for his surgery. And later on in the day, we were just nervously awaiting phone calls, just to hear about how he would come out of it, if he was going to come out of it. And everything sounded okay, until the surgery was successful for what he needed. But then it was late in Friday afternoon. I was sitting at work, and my dad calls me, and my dad says, Archie wasn't able to wake up from the surgery. It was just too hard on his body. And, you just crumble into pieces. And, I've got him as my lock screen on my phone. And, that's something that I've had for years now. And, I don't plan on changing that. But there's little reminders everywhere. It's just the routine of, you wake up in the morning, you take the dog out for a pish, or you feed them at different times in the day, or whenever we have family dinners together, which is every night, he's at the table with us by our side, or just drooling over food, or you're making food in the kitchen and his bed is directly opposite where we stand in the kitchen, and you look up and you expect him to be there, but he's not there. And so it's all those little reminders. But yeah, it all just happened really, really quickly. And yeah, I hope everyone just gives their dog a really big pat and a really big kiss and cuddle, because you don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next.
Yeah, well, first of all, very sorry to hear, Jeremy. It sounds like you've just gone through complete hell in the last week, and the fact of the matter is, it's just scary how your whole world or your animal passes away, and they would have represented a huge chunk of your childhood, and just knowing that that can just be switched around in 24 hours, it can take such an emotional toll on you.
Oh yeah, and that was the really shocking part of it all, that it was over the space of 24 to 48 hours. Like, honestly, did not see anything coming until he started acting a bit weird, and like hadn't been showing many symptoms before that, if any at all. So that's why, you just don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next, and it's so important to just really maximize every day. And I know it's such a cliche, but it's so true. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. And like, one thing that I like to think about personally is, like, even when people ask you, like, how are you? What'd you get up to today? Like, I normally like to start off by saying, like, yeah, well, woke up in the morning, and that's typically a great way to start the day, because it's true. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen every day. So, I think like little notions of gratitude like that really puts things into perspective as well. But yeah, it really was a week of turmoil, and it is still really raw. But I think we just have to keep remembering the good times that we had, because we only had good times with Archie. It was best 10 years of our lives for our family. He came into my life when I was 13 years old, and now leaving me at 23 years old. So really was there unconditionally through everything of my adolescence, all those formative years. And that's the beauty of animals, is it? It's the fact that they will just always be there for that unconditional love. And there's when you think of animals, there's no judgment, there's no hatred, there's no racism. It's, there's none of that exists. They're just happy creatures, loving creatures. And yeah, so we're just always just going to remind ourselves of the beautiful times. And I know you experienced something similar as well with your dog, which was pretty recent too. So you know all about it as well.
Yeah, we lost our dog back in November, and it was a very, very challenging period. He was 17, 18 years old. He had a great innings, and that was incredibly tough, especially, as you said, a dog has this ability to provide you with unconditional love. And, I think it's one of the very few creatures or beings that can actually do that. So it's always, I think, just as hard to lose an animal as it is to lose a human. And I suppose in the last week, although we both have kind of gone through our own grief with you and Archie, unfortunately, I lost my great grandmother. It would have been a few days ago now. But unfortunately, last week, she was my 98-year-old great grandmother. She was in aged care for some time, but with quite a bit of severe age-related dementia. And the toughest thing was knowing that I got a phone call on Saturday morning saying that she got admitted into hospital with respiratory failure.
Yeah.
And the days from Saturday to Sunday, and even, it was Saturday and Sunday, was just spent being with her by her hospital bed. And a lot of people have asked, like, you've taken it. I took it really poorly. Like, I don't think it's tough because she represented a huge chunk of my childhood.
Yeah.
She was.
What did she do for you during your childhood? What was your relationship
to give
during your childhood?
To give you some context, when I wasn't at kindergarten or primary school, my parents would be working a lot. So I'd be with my grandmother and my great grandmother. So I essentially experienced a lot of my earliest years with them. I remember going with my grandmother on my bike and then coming home and seeing that back to theirs and seeing that my great grandmother cooked up a storm. She would tell me stories. I loved, sitting on her lap, and she would tell me stories of her, her younger years, things like that. And she did represent. I had a very special bond and connection with her, just like you had with Archie. I don't think it matters that one's a human, one's an animal. Love is love, connection is connection. And that really, I knew that it was coming. Look, she was 98. It's a great innings, and I'm very grateful to God that she was able to live those 98 years. And I got to say at 23 years old that I had a great grandmother.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I think we really need to be so grateful for our grandparents, because what shatters me sometimes is you meeting people, or like I've spent a lot of time working in hospitals over my placements for physiotherapy, for example, and there are some lovely elderly people in there that are grandparents, and you ask them questions about their family life and their history with their family and their living space and their living conditions, and it's so sad, and that it's so common to hear that a lot of these elderly people really don't have much of a connection with their children and their grandchildren. And every time I hear that, that shatters my heart, because I love my grandparents. I'm really close with my grandparents. They're the most important people in my life, arguably. And like, they just mean the world to me, and as they clearly do to you as well. So it teaches us so much. Like, really, just, if you do have your grandparents around, give them all the love and support, because they want nothing more than that love and support from you, and to be able to give that love and support to you as well.
It was just, I completely agree. And that what you just mentioned, that sometimes grandparents aren't as close with their grandchildren. If you really think about it, your grandparents, all they have to live for sometimes are their children. Yeah. It's essentially their legacy. And I had such a special relationship with my great grandmother, even in her most, deteriorated state, very bad dementia. She still knew and recognized who I was. So on the Saturday, she was admitted. She was pretty unresponsive.
Yeah.
I had this thing where I'd always tell her how much I loved her. I said, in Russian, I'd say, "Babushka, I love you." And what happened was, I thought she just didn't hear me. I thought it was done. And she ended up saying, "I love you too." Aww. And she started smiling, and knowing it was probably her last smile, I just don't think I've ever bawled my eyes out as much. The amount of trips I made, to the hospital, to Alfred Hospital on the Saturday and Sunday, just trying to see her for the last time. I've gone through some emotional periods before, whether it's like breakups or something like that. I don't think I've ever cried as much as I did last Saturday and Sunday. I genuinely felt defeated, knowing that, a part of your childhood and adolescence, even my early adulthood, it's like a chapter that's now closing.
Yeah.
And seeing, knowing that she wasn't suffering was, very reassuring as well. But
the best part. To go out without any suffering.
100%. So to say that I didn't know it was coming would be false. Mm-hmm. I knew she was obviously up there with her age, but she had a lot of spirit and a lot of energy and a lot of personality. And, a lot of people will say sometimes, it might be easier when they're at a certain age rather than when they're younger. And that is true. But if you have a strong love, bond and connection with, whether it's a person or a dog, just saying goodbye in and of itself is still one of the most heart-wrenching things you could do.
It's crushing. But I know you just mentioned that this wasn't a sudden thing. Like, I experienced such a sudden thing with Archie, but with your great grandmother, she was declining, naturally being of that age as well. So how do you deal with the anticipation of loss? Like, the loss is coming. How do you deal with the anticipation of it?
It's a good question, because if I'm completely honest with you, we're in our younger years. We haven't really experienced death firsthand. So I think,
at least in our situation.
In our situation, personally, everyone's got different situations, that's for sure.
And I think that's something we're so lucky and fortunate to have so far, is that, I've only experienced death a couple of times in my life so far. And
nothing can prepare you for it, though. That's the thing.
Can prepare you, but I also know that my situation is completely different to others who have experienced it on a lot greater levels than what I have. But I guess it is all contextual. So yeah, how have you dealt with the anticipation of it?
I suppose with my great grandmother, when she was in aged care, I would take every opportunity. If I had time once a week to go visit her, I would do that. I just took it upon myself, and I knew that the days were numbered. I knew that we'd get a phone call any day saying that it's something like, her being admitted to hospital or her passing was just imminent. So I just said to myself, just go visit her, visit her, visit her. And that's what I did. I didn't want to get to the point where when she did pass, I would have this lingering thought of, wow, I wish I saw her that extra time. I wish I could have just, delayed seeing my friends by an hour or two. I wish I could have just not studied for that half an hour or an hour longer. I wish I could have just spent that half an hour extra.
Yeah.
Because that regret can really kill you.
Oh,
I'm personally fortunate that I did try to make the most of it, because I think the fact that I had such a strong relationship with her, I think making use of that time that you have left, trying not to think about the negatives, but really just making them feel happy, that can mitigate that feeling of anxiety and sadness. But at the end of the day, you can't avoid it.
You can't, because you don't want to sit there on the side of the bed and try sugarcoat things and be, so happy-go-lucky about everything, because let's be real, like they know they know what's going on just as much as you know what's going on. They're expecting it just as much as we're expecting it. So I think sometimes it's the most beautiful moments are saying nothing at all and just being there with them, just holding their hands. It's just that love through body language sometimes that can make all the difference and do more than words sometimes, because it's just that feeling of connection.
That's essentially what it was, because on the Sunday evening, she was, I think, quite sedated, and I was just holding her hand, knowing that, the doctors came in and they said, look, it could be hours or it could be days.
Yeah.
It was a few hours, unfortunately, but I was just holding her hand, and I at that moment, I felt like I was being destroyed. I couldn't stop crying. I was there with my aunt, my mum, my grandmother, and obviously my great grandmother, who was just in the hospital bed. And it was tough, and it got me thinking about something. And there's going to be really, really shit days in your life where you get those phone calls that something tragic has happened. But the days that you don't receive those, no matter how stressful your day might be, if there's nothing that's tragic or something that, is comparable to life or death, it should be treated as an amazing day. Because honestly, as soon as I got that phone call from my dad that she was in hospital, the first thought I had was, wow, I was so lucky the last few days, really any other day, that I haven't received that sort of phone call. Because and I think when you're young, you take it for granted naturally.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Oh, mate, I think that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I think that is beautiful. And I think that just shows your gratitude, which is so... I feel like gratitude can be so overlooked so easily today, especially. We have so many distractions. We all know it. I'm only echoing things that we know right now. But, we've got all the distractions there. We've got our phones. We've got our busy lives. And that realization right there, you're able to take 5 seconds out of your day to think, wow, like I haven't received a tragic phone call today. I haven't experienced a tragic event. How fucking lucky am I? It's beautiful.
It is. I've got a question for you though. You mentioned how like sometimes there are ways you can potentially mitigate those feelings of stress and anxiety in anticipation of someone's imminent death. In your case, there was no anticipation. It came on. It was chaotic, 24 hours. You really just had to, it was over before it even started. It almost felt like. How do you reckon you can, what do you do? Like, I don't even know the question to ask because it's such a heavy topic, but what do you do in those coming days or the days following when the grief and everything is so raw?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where because it happened so suddenly, I think my initial feeling was of shock rather than sadness. And then the sadness just comes on stronger and stronger and stronger. following on from the initial sense of shock. And I think that's fine that, sometimes in life, you're not prepared to face certain things. You're not prepared to face imminent tragedy. You're not prepared to face shock or unfavorable situations. And it's okay to not know how to deal with it. So, mate, you asked me, like, how do you deal with it, the suddenness of it? I don't know. I didn't know. I didn't know then, and I haven't known prior. And I think that's, like, I've been able to find love and comfort in that answer, because I think not knowing, that's what life's about sometimes. You're not going to know how to deal with certain situations, which is why the universe, God, the world puts us in these certain situations, because, I've now experienced it and learned from it. And I think coming out of it, I've just mainly kept telling myself to just be that strong pillar for my family, because people deal with certain situations differently, and some people take harder situations a lot more severely than maybe I would personally. So just really trying to be that strong pillar for my family, and really just focusing on the amazing memories and times we had, because dealing with loss, like that's never going to leave you. You're never going to be able to rid your mind of the person or the situation. And why would you want to? You want to hold that dear with you forever. So I think it's beautiful to always remind yourself. So, like, I'm not going to change my lock screen of Archie for now, at least. Like, I feel like it would be a natural reaction sometimes maybe for people to rid themselves of that, so that they don't have that reminder. But I'm going to keep looking at that and just use it in a positive light and just remind myself of all the fucking good times, because that's all it was. And I wouldn't want to rid myself of memories. I'd want to hold them dear forever.
I think it's very beautiful. I really do, because I think when you're young as well, since you haven't experienced death to that frequency, when it first does happen, when you first have to go to a funeral or you lose a loved one or a pet, it shatters and kind of destabilizes your world. Because when you're younger, you naturally think that time is unlimited, Yeah. Your time on this earth is unlimited. You genuinely think that every day is just going to be given to you. The unfortunate reality of it is that it's not.
Life is fucking short.
Any day, it is, Me driving from my house to your house has a risk in and of itself.
Yeah.
As scary as that is. We don't think about it, because if we were thinking about it to such a great extent, we'd become paranoid.
Yeah.
We know that's not healthy, but the unfortunate reality is life is finite. And I think when we do first experience death in our formative years, in our early adulthood, it automatically just paints a picture of the world that, hey man, time on this earth is limited. Make use of it. And I think that's another huge reason why it can really fuck with you, especially when you're so young. And as you said, there's no playbook. There's no textbook for how to deal with grief. Something that I suppose I could do, and potentially others could do as well, is you want to channel the qualities of the person or the dog or the individual, whoever it was who sadly passed. You channel those qualities and you try to live by them. What do you reckon?
I think that's the best way to take on board whatever it was you were dealing with. Thinking about who was that person to me, who was that person to other people, what were the values they lived by, and how can I instill that in my life? So it's taking a leaf out of their book and keeping their legacy alive. I think that's a beautiful method of dealing with it.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I can speak fondly of my great-grandmother. She was a Holocaust survivor. Her life was marked by survival. It wasn't an easy life. She luckily escaped. She was one of 11 siblings.
Wow. She
grew up so it would have been the Eastern Europe, Soviet Union at the time. She was in Kazakhstan for a matter of years just to escape the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Came back, found out most of her siblings had passed. Her parents had passed during the war. And then she got married, had a family, went through the arduous process of immigrating to the US and then to Australia with all of her family. And she never had a lot of money. She was quite poor for a majority of her life, but she was a very strong person. And something that I do remember, and these are the qualities I want to remember, is her strength.
Mm-hmm.
She was a bit like militant. Like she didn't like people who slept in, because she like she was that typical like old school traditionalist.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
She'd be the sort of person, like she would make fun of my mum if she ate too much food.
Oh.
She was very like harsh, but she was a very strong, independent person. And I think that's those sort of qualities are the qualities that I try to remind myself of, especially when I get sad about it now, is that just because physically she's not here, that doesn't mean that you can't live on and, do justice to the quality and the energy that she had, which was of strength, of personality.
And no doubt you will, mate. And no doubt you will. You will take on that strength and that, that strong militant persona, and you'll implement that into your life. Now, you did mention the whole mentality of how life is so finite and it's not going to be with us forever. And I just wanted to ask you, why do you think it's important for us to remind ourselves of that daily if we can? Why is it important to not be a relaxed, go with the flow type person about life? Because that's what kind of eggs me a little bit and like shits me when I come across some people and I kind of think that they're just going with the flow about life and just on autopilot. And that's not to say that they're chilled people, because I like to think that I'm a pretty chilled, laid back person as well. Live a busy life, but naturally laid back person. So I'm also thinking about just being on autopilot mode, relaxed mode, like not urgent to do stuff. And I think that's why it's important to remind ourselves about the limit, like how life is just so, it's just going to go in a second. Like we're not here forever. It's because it gives us that urgency to actually go and chase stuff. And I wanted to ask you, of your perspective, why do you think it's so important to remind ourselves of that?
Because one day you will be 21 and the next day you will blink and you'll be 60. So the reality is time flies by very quickly. There's as it comes back to the earlier point, no day is guaranteed. You're lucky to be waking up. You're lucky to be living on this earth. That's the reality of it, just from a statistical aspect. Another reality of it is it makes life more meaningful when you know that it's finite, when you know that time spent is going to be limited. There's more meaning and emotion attached to the everyday. Your days, your activities that you perform, if you understand that life is limited and that time is ticking, you will hopefully naturally be able to put your energy into the things that fulfill you. Yeah. Whether that's the people around you. And usually people on their deathbed, when you ask them what they're most grateful for, they don't tend to say, the work that they did. They in fact say it's the relationships that they had, whether it was the intimate friendships, family. I think it's really not about like they don't mention the dollars at the end of the day, do they? Well, they did a study, and I think a bunch of nurses did a study in palliative care. I'm not sure how long ago this study was, and it was, I think, the top 5 regrets of the dying, and the number one, I don't know what the order was, but some of the regrets mentioned was, I wish I didn't work so hard. I wish I lived a life true to myself. And I think it was another one, like, I wish I didn't care so much about what other people thought of me. And it's true. When you're at that age, you do live for others. Yeah. That's your legacy, right? So the happiest times in my life haven't been when I'm on my own, but rather they've been when I'm with my friends or my family or my girlfriend. All those times are when I'm the most happiest. I suppose if we can take notice of those regrets that people who are dying have made, in a sense, it can give you a cheat code for how to live your life. You understand that, hey, if those are the regrets that the most elderly people in the world have displayed, well, there's a major nuggets of truth in there.
Major nuggets of
and it
truth.
goes down to stoicism as well. Like the Stoics would say, no day is guaranteed. Remind yourself that death, you could die tomorrow. And if you knew that you were going to die, and you knew that life, if you were constantly reminding yourself that death is very imminent, you will naturally put your eggs and your energy into activities, behaviors that fulfill you and make you happier.
Couldn't agree more. It comes back to that point of urgency, doesn't it? And you also touched on something which I relate to so much, and it's that we are so insignificant. You are so insignificant. I am so insignificant. The world is that motherfucking big. It is so big. There is so many people out there, billions of people in this world. And here we are sometimes thinking, do I post this photo on Instagram or this photo on Instagram? Do I wear this shirt to the bar or this shirt to the bar? Do I order bloody chicken or beef tonight? And it's like, and then you go around asking your friends about, what you should do. Nobody gives a fuck. Like, we are so insignificant. Life is so short. Be who you want to be. Do what you want to do. Act how you want to act, because nobody cares at the end of the day, and you should have no regrets at the end of the day. Live the life you want to live.
Agree. I think it's very true. People need to get out of the spotlight effect where they think the whole world revolves around them. Because the reality, I don't mean that in a rude way. I mean that in the sense that oftentimes we get very conscious that the entire world is focusing on every behavior that we're doing. The reality is everyone's feeling like that, so they don't actually have the energy to look on everyone else.
Yeah. And I think that also needs to be thought about from the perspective of even the most famous people in the world, the celebrities of our life. We need to stop being so harsh on some of the actions of them, because look, yes, I understand that they are celebrities. They're in the limelight and they therefore have a particular status that they need to uphold and responsibilities they need to uphold. But we're all just humans at the end of the day. So, if there's a bloke that wants, that plays sport and he wants to have a good time on a Saturday night, just like any of us would want to do occasionally, let them have a good time, and don't go bashing that person.
Well, like the West Coast list of 2006.
Because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Everyone's a human at the end of the day, and people want to have fun. People don't want to have to be so uptight and held back with their actions occasionally. So yes, we've all got responsibilities. Yes, you want to uphold the person you want to be, the values you want to live by. But I feel like everyone just also needs to chill the fuck out a little bit.
Well, life is short. You want to be more chilled out, and I mean that in the sense of you don't want to cry and worry about spilt milk every day, because there's going to be much bigger problems than spilt milk.
That's it. Now, I also just wanted to ask a question. I think this can be a positive question about loss. It's a question that I think a lot of people might relate to. Is I personally feel when I've experienced, family death, that it's actually brought my family closer. Is that something that you felt with your family? I know it's all very raw. It's all happened very quickly. But do you feel like the loss of your great-grandmother has, in a weird way, brought your family closer together?
Yes, 100%. Even being in that hospital room on the Sunday evening, seeing my aunt and my mum and my grandmother, and although we're all crying and bawling our eyes out at the same time, we're, cracking jokes, from time to time, reminiscing about the memories that we had. That in and of itself bonds you closer to one another. You're asking each other how the other person's going, I've spoken to my grandmother quite a bit because she lost her mum. And I've been asking her how she's been. And it's kind of told me that although I'm speaking to my family members more in this time of grief, there's no reason why I shouldn't do it outside of that period of grief.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is it. So as you said, you do feel like you've become closer with them, because naturally everyone is so emotional, and you're just you're able to process things much easier when you have people around you who are going through the same thing. Yeah. They understand. They're also going through pain, but you feel their pain and they feel your pain. that's naturally going to bond people together.
It's weird, isn't it? It's that shared love through experiencing shared pain. Like, I feel like normally you would think, you've gone through something really tough. Maybe you want to just take some time out and comprehend that yourself. But I think it's quite the opposite. I find so much solace, and it sounds like you do as well, in bonding over that with other people experiencing it in the same way.
Yeah, I think it's natural for us humans to do that. We bond over emotional periods. I mean, you bond with people when you go through good times, and you certainly bond with them when you go through shit times.
Yeah.
I think humans were emotional creatures.
Yeah.
And I think another aspect to it as well is you are reminded of how lucky you are to still have those people around you. So, as we're sitting there and we're looking at the potential imminent demise of my great-grandmother, we're kind of just appreciating the fact that we still have each other.
Yeah.
We're not fighting this on our own. We have everyone besides us. We love each other, and we also know that we'll help each other get through, and we trust each other that we'll get each other through. And I think that's why it's a very, there's always good times or light and dark, and there's dark times and light. It's like the whole yin yang thing, right?
Yeah.
Even in as dark of a period that Sunday night was in that hospital room, the fact that we were reminiscing on memories, the fact that we were crying besides each other and being supportive towards another, those are the good things. Those are the little nuggets of positivity that you can sometimes draw upon in those times that are so shit.
Beautiful, mate. That's beautiful. And the sun will rise tomorrow, and tomorrow is always a new day. So if you do experience any grief, any tragedy, which we all will, we all do, and we all will. That's life. It's not all sunshine and rainbows and butterflies and lollipops. There is grief, but with that being said, like I just said before, the sun does rise tomorrow. So it is important to focus on that and focus on the beauty that each day might bring, because you don't know what the next day will bring after that. So take every day as it comes, confide in those that you love most, share your grief with other people, be vulnerable, be raw. And I think that's the best way that you can deal with grief, possibly, I believe.
I agree. I think also, before we kind of finish up the show, we're not big here on giving advice for Big Bros. We will share our perspectives. We'll say what's worked for us. But I'm going to make an exception to the rule here. I want, for anyone who's listening, who's got a relationship with, whoever it is in their life, whether it's friends, family, animals, show them that you love them. Show them that you care about them. It doesn't have to be verbatim, I love you, but it's anything. But just show them that you appreciate them, because the reality is no day is guaranteed. And if this is a sign for you guys to, in a sense, express that love and appreciation for the things that you do have in your life, the people, the animals that you have, then so be it. But that's kind of my only advice, because you just don't know how quickly that can be ripped away from you.
Beautifully said, mate. Nothing more needs to be added with that. And I think that's the beautiful way to end the show. So if any of you have got any questions or want to express anything about the show to us, please feel free to reach out. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you. And if you have enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate if you can show us your support and love, and follow us and hit that 5-star rating too. And we can't thank you enough for joining us. So thank you, and we hope you have a lovely week.
Thanks, guys. I know this wouldn't have been an easy listen, but the reality is life isn't always going to be easy. There's going to be uncomfortable topics, and I think it's a very relevant topic especially in our formative years. So yeah, on that note, hopefully next week is only going to be sunshine, but you know what? Whatever happens, we'll be strong. And yeah, I don't know what else to say, but I hope you guys were able to derive some sort of value from this episode.
Amazing. Alrighty. Thanks for joining us, and have an amazing week, guys.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.